Greetings, friends. Welcome back to another episode of Dreamscapes. Today we have our friend Jimmy Fritz. I'm going to try and do this in one breath. A self-described heterodoxical polemicist, skeptical, iconoclast, anti-theist aficionado of stoicism, and one hell of a funny guy who is also a musician with 5 albums, filmmaker, world traveler, and author of Rave Culture and Insider's View and his new book, Confessions of an Ethical Drug Dealer. I had to take a breath. That was too much. You can find him at jimmyfritz.ca. It'll be down in the description below. Before you do that, stop what you're doing, like, share, subscribe, tell your friends. I always need more volunteer dreamers. Please get a t-shirt, coffee mug, one of my 12 currently available books of historical dream literature. That is enough housekeeping out of me. Back to our friend Jimmy. Thank you for being patient with the intro. That's a hell of a resume.
Yeah, it's exhausting. I'm tired just listening to it.
Right?
I need to take a nap and have a dream.
For sure. So, the first thing I thought of when I'm looking at your bio, is so you've got Confessions of an Ethical Drug Dealer, your latest book, and there's a very famous book from 1821 by Thomas de Quincey called Confessions of an English Opium Eater. Were you doing a little reference to that?
I guess indirectly, although I've never read that book. Mm-hmm. But I have heard about it quite a bit over the years. But no, it wasn't a direct reference to that. I mean, confessions of this and that. There's a lot of books which are confessions, and so I thought the ethical drug dealer part is kind of intentionally provocative,
for sure.
And that's usually the first question I get is, what's an ethical drug dealer? Because people have such a terrible idea about drug dealers. They're sort of right up there with hitmen.
Oh yeah.
But there's a whole other world of psychedelic drug use going on, which I've showcased in the book through my life. It's a 50-year journey. Mm-hmm. Geographically, philosophically, through psychedelic drug use, basically, and international travel. So that's the theme. And I just wanted to provide a more realistic look at psychedelic drug use, rather than all the misinformation that we get all the time.
There's a lot of biased hyperbole out there. I mean, the first thing that came to my mind with an ethical drug dealer is ibuprofen. It's on the store shelves. That is an ethical drug dealer. That's a drug. They're giving it for a reason to alleviate some suffering of the human condition. And a lot of people don't think about it that way. Well, those aren't drugs. Yeah, they are.
Exactly. No, the doctors are the biggest drug dealers around. And now you're right. They're
very true.
Drug dealers.
Yeah, and they would be as well. And we want them to be. We want them to be drug dealers because drugs have an absolute benefit, some kind more than others, and for different conditions. But and we want them to be ethical. So you would hope your doctor is an ethical drug dealer in that sense. Yeah. And my reference to Confessions of an English Opium, that popped to my mind, the title, and that is one of the most heavily cited works of fiction, of autobiography across my collection of historical dream literature. Almost every single author writing on dreams throughout the last 500 years, since 1821, 200 years, has referenced Thomas de Quincey and his book, because he talks about dreams he specifically experienced, he believes, as a result of taking opium dreams. That was a big part of his described journey. And he was also very much a traveler. He went to Asia and India and all these places. And that was a kind of, a very popular thing in the early 1800s, these travelogue self-report. Look at where I've been and what I've seen. Let me bring my stories back and share them with the public. So you're carrying on a very grand English tradition there.
Yes, it's definitely in that tradition for sure.
Yeah, very cool. So just a little bit more about that, your most recent book, The Confessions of an Ethical Drug Dealer. If you were to kind of describe, I don't know if you have a synopsis of it that you would want to share with people, kind of what's it about and how does it...
I call it a psychedelic travelogue and memoir.
Mm-hmm.
It says on the back cover, Fritz takes us on a journey both geographical and philosophical while sharing a half-century of adventures in buying, selling, and consuming psychedelic drugs. Along the way, we learn the difference between smart drugs and dumb drugs, the truth about religion, and how to make a perfect cup of tea.
Well, the most important part, obviously, right there at the end. Got to have a perfect cup.
It's the mother of all drugs. It's an English cup of tea.
Very much so. Yeah, and I like to do that as well. I'm very much a contrarian on Twitter sometimes. I get out there and I like to find people that make these declarative statements, and I say, Have you considered broadening the category a bit and looking at it this way? You know, a lot of people don't consider the coffee we drink or even alcohol to be actual drugs. More people think alcohol is a drug than tea, but caffeine, it is. We put a lot of things in our body, and they all affect the way our body functions, the way our mind responds to perceptions. Yeah.
Yeah, caffeine is remarkably similar to amphetamines.
Yeah, has a lot of the same effect.
People drink it because they want to do, they want an amphetamine effect, right? They want to pick me up. They want some speed. Mm-hmm. It's a mild form of speed.
Yep, and it can be overdone as well, and it can cause heart complications. There's people that, if you're drinking 7 pots of coffee a day just to keep going, I'm going to recommend you might have a problem and you want to check that out. Just look into it. That's a bit much,
That's right.
Yeah. Well, if you feel like we've given you a good enough introduction, I know you're a little tight on time. We can do the dream thing and see what I can see what I can give you. So, as per my usual process, I just shut up and listen. People tell me the dream as they experienced it. I write it down, and then we see if we can make something of it. So, I'm ready when you are.
Well, I have a kind of I don't know how unique it is, and maybe you could put some insight on that. But I have kind of basically about 12 or 15 dreams that I have, and I've been having them for 50 years. And they're always the same. It's just the same. It's like Groundhog Day. It's the same places. It's the same people. It's the same things that happen. And they're completely boring to me now because I'll be at the same place. For instance, there's one that happens in Paris. And I've been to Paris a couple of times, but I don't really know the city that well. But in this dream that I've been going back to in the same place for, I'd say 40 years for this one. And I go back there and I go, oh yeah, here we are again. I know this place. I know my way around now because over the years with the repeating dreams, I've learnt the, landscape. I've learnt the geographical landscape of Paris. And I don't think it's an accurate landscape because I don't know Paris that well. But there we have it, so it builds up and gets more complex over the years. And I've, at least a dozen examples of this. So the Paris one, for instance, I know where people are. I go to find them. I know I walk around the streets. I go into, find out where they are. There's an artist studio and I go there and I meet my old friend Seymour and, this, that, and the other thing. So, but it's always the same stuff. And I have these repeating themes in my dreams, these repeating events and places that just continue endlessly. One of the most common things is my car gets stolen. And there's 5 or 6 places where it gets stolen from. And I know these places. And when I see them and I park my car there, I know that the car's going to get stolen. So there's also a lucid aspect to these dreams because I'll come back to find the car and it's gone. And instead of like in the early days, like for the first few years, I'd have these dreams. My guitar would get stolen, my car would get stolen, and I'd be shocked, I'd go, oh shit. And I'd feel the loss of that car or whatever. And oh, no, my car's been stolen. What am I going to do? And then I've got to find it. Then I'm running around finding it. Well, now over the years, it's become so commonplace that I'll come around the corner to the parking lot. And even before I get to it, I'll know that it's been stolen. And then I come around and I just confirm it. And I go, yeah, of course it's stolen. It's always stolen. every time I come back to this parking lot and every time I leave my car in this spot, it's always stolen. And I don't even worry about it anymore. And I say, this is just a repeating dream. This is just something that happens endlessly in my dream. And I just disregard it completely. It seems to have no emotional weight at all because it's just the same things happening endlessly and repeatedly like Groundhog Day. So figure that one out.
Right.
It doesn't seem to have any meaning or value because if there was any message or meaning or value in there, I would have got that. I would have picked that up. I'm pretty perceptive. I would have picked up the reference. I would have picked up some reference or some relationship to my waking life sometime over the last 4 or 5 decades. I've literally been having these dreams for decades, and they just go on, and they're all the same dreams, same people, same situations, and it's just commonplace now. So there's nothing really remarkable happens in my dreams anymore. When I was younger, I had the flying dreams and all that, but now it's just It's just this boring, endless procession of repetitive events. I anticipate them. I know what's going to happen. I know who I'm going to meet, and it's just seems to be a complete waste of time. And I'd much rather get a good night's sleep.
Yeah, that is a very interesting phenomenon. So at this point, viewers will have seen my last week's episode, and I was talking to a fella from the UK, Tim Heel, and he described this phenomenon where he has had reoccurring dreams of his deceased older brother. Now, this is an older brother that died before he was born, but he started having these dreams of his brother's life paralleling his own. As he grows older, his brother goes through similar experiences, joins the military about the same time he does. He has kids who are getting married when they're older. I mean, these are lifelong dreams for this guy. I was absolutely flummoxed by that, and this seems a very similar phenomenon. You're having these recurrent dreams to the point of boredom. It isn't just like recurring dreams. So what's the theory in general on recurring dreams? Is the theory is there is some message in there that either you haven't finished understanding in some way, or represents a chronic concern or persistent hope. So it's generally these, but why that particular form? So usually what I do in these cases is I try and find the most recent example, nail that one down in the particulars, and then try and extrapolate from that to look for the specific reason or pattern across the trend. Do you have a most recent specific example, the last time you had one of these dreams and how it played out?
Last week, I was I was trying to get my car fixed. And this has happened dozens and dozens and dozens of times. And there's this industrial strip with all these garages, and they're all in a row. And I'm going from one to the other, and they're closed, and I can't get in. And then the guy's not there. And then I got to wait for the guy. Then he doesn't show up. Then I go to the next one. And then I leave the car, park it in the car park, come back later. And of course, it's stolen. And I know it's going to be stolen before I get there. I know it's not going to be there because it's never there. And that's pretty much it. You know, that's the cycle. It's this endless cycle of, and there's a lucid aspect to these dreams because I know I'm dreaming. I say, oh yeah, it's okay. And I don't worry about it anymore. I don't get any sort of emotional response at all because I know it's going to happen. And then it happens and I go, yeah, okay, well, so what? But I would think if there was some kind of a message or meaning in that, I mean, why would I be doing this for decades?
For sure. Yeah. And it may not be, what am I trying to say? It might be something that requires a mirror, like to see the back of your head in a way. It's like, it's always there, you know, it's there and you know what it does, you know what it's for, and you know, there's hair growing out of it. But you can't really maybe see it until you get a mirror to look around behind, or two mirrors looking into each other. That might be the case. It might be. But so this was last week, and it's the most recent instance of it. And were you again in Paris, or were you in?
No, this is another location, which is this industrial landscape, and I've been back there many, many times too. There are about a dozen locations and places and with people in that I come across repeatedly over and over and over again.
Gotcha. So my theory would be, or my estimation is, there's something about this industrial landscape, as you describe it, that represents a kind of crystallized idea in your mind of a particular kind of thing or type of experience. So I start making little notes. I go, okay, familiar industrial landscape, and this is reoccurrent. So why this one and not Paris on this particular occasion? I start looking for those little clues. That might say something about what's going on in your life currently that says, okay, think of the car theft idea in this context for a reason. And hopefully we get to that reason in a minute or two. When you describe it, what's the condition of the area? Is it kind of a vibrant, bustling?
No, it's desolate and derelict, broken down, and there's long distances between these garages, and it's dusty, and it's just in the middle of nowhere.
Okay. And your very first experience is, you're driving a car that is broken though, but you know it just needs to be fixed. You're trying to deliver it somewhere.
It's always the same car. It's my 1970 Pontiac Catalina convertible. It's always the same car. It's always that. I mean, it was the coolest car I ever had, and so, you know, it makes sense that I would be more concerned about that car getting stolen than any other car. But
yeah, and there's something to the idea that it is always that same car, and it represents something specific from that time in your life, some kind of experience or emotion that you've got tied to owning that vehicle, driving that vehicle. The vehicle took you somewhere, or it represented a status, or there's something about it that says something about you, or a way you look at yourself.
I had a fantastic time in that car. We went to many, many raves and many parties and festivals, and drove around with whole bunches of people partying in the back. It was huge. So that's
nice.
That's what it represented to me, was freedom and you know, social interaction and festivity.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'd say that's a very important element too. So if I were to try to get a visual of what you were looking at, what was the first shop you went to? Was it near any other types of buildings? Were there any features of the landscape nearby?
The first building is kind of a mall, and I think I went into the mall and bought something, and then I went to the next that place along this, like a long strip, and then there was a series of garages, and then I found a guy that could do the work that I wanted. But when I left, I knew the car would be stolen when I got back. And when I got back, there it was, gone.
Yeah. So when you say the first place was a mall, I think of so I'm in Portland, Oregon, and there's what's called the Clackamas Mall, and it's a giant standalone complex of multiple stores that all have a storefront facing inward. Then there's the difference of a strip mall.
Yeah, this is more like a strip mall, or what we call a plaza, you know, which is just like a few stores together, one of which is a supermarket. I think there was a pet store and a couple of other little stores in just a small little strip.
It's interesting too, the small details that come to your mind, like what other buildings are there? Well, you actually saw them, and your mind placed a supermarket, place of acquiring necessary resources, getting food. Everyone loves to eat, but it's food you cook yourself. It wasn't a restaurant. Interesting. And
sometimes I go into this supermarket too, on some occasions. Sometimes I'll just drive by it and go to the garages. Sometimes I'll go into the supermarket and actually go walk around with the basket and buy stuff, and then I can't find stuff, and then it turns into like a Salvation Army thing, and I'm looking for clothes, and you know, it's just ordinary stuff. It doesn't seem to have any earth-shattering meaning.
Yeah, some of it may not be profound, but it's each little thing. And then you also put a pet store in this strip mall. So these are other representations of, say, important things in your life. Getting sweaty, pull up my pant legs. Right? I sit here, I sit in my garage, and I get sweaty talking to people on the internet, doing nothing. Oh, okay. Do you remember how many different garages you might have visited in total? Was it a dozen, 2 dozen, 3?
I'd say 3 or 4.
Okay.
Because some of them were just closed. I'd just drive in and look around. I couldn't find the guy, and then I'd go on to the next one.
Some closed and some no mechanic present.
Yeah.
So there's something suggested there in terms of you've got a mechanic's garage, and that's a specific kind of place that fixes cars. You got a problem with the car. Some of them are closed. They're unavailable to respond to your need. Some of them, they're open, but you walk in there and there's no mechanic. There's no skilled person to help fix the problem, to put their skills to use on your behalf. There's something going on in there. I'm just making these little carrots as we go down. And then, so you finally got to, say, the end of the row, and there were no more shops to search, to choose from. You completed the search, and they're all unavailable. When you left your car in a place, what was that? What did that place look like?
It was a garage, like just an ordinary kind of. It's a small garage. I left the car outside, and then he was going to drive it in and fix it later. and I guess we talked about a price or whatever, and it seemed reasonable.
Okay.
So I went away and came back. And of course, on the way back, walking down the road, I think, oh, here we are again. It's going to be gone. There's going to be nobody there, and the car's going to be stolen, just like always. And sure enough, there it is, and I'm completely not surprised. And that's it.
So almost like whatever you're looking for, it's in you find it in the last place you look, because once you find it, you stop looking. So you found a shop that finally had a mechanic there, and you assume there was some kind of negotiation over price, but do you have a strong memory of actually speaking to the person, what they looked like, nature of the conversation?
Just a little guy, kind of bald and greasy overalls, a typical kind of garage guy, mechanic. And we talked about what was wrong with the car. It was something to do with the front end and something to do with the oil. And he said he'd have that done if I came back later. And I came back later, and there it was, gone again.
As per usual.
As per usual.
Right. Okay. So yeah, that's interesting too. I don't know if that is going to mean anything, but I was going to get around to what's the nature of the particular damage this time with the car. So something about the front end and the oil. Oil greases the wheels, keeps the engine running. It's a very integral part of the machinery that makes the car go. But the front end is more of a cosmetic thing, and it's maybe the first thing people see in photographs or as you're approaching them driving. So there's a kind of front-facing.
It was more like tie rods or idler arms, as in front end parts.
Gotcha.
Steering.
Okay, that's a good clarification. So it is also steering control.
There you
that's
go.
Even more important. Yeah,
there's a clue.
Oil problems and steering control. It may be some things I can nail down. I can give a theory, give a suggestion. Some things I'm like, I don't know what the hell that is. I just call it. I just say it like it happens. If it stumps me, it stumps me. Those are the things that I end up meditating on and hopefully dream about. I don't remember my own dreams. I know that I did dream and flashes, but I have to do most of my thinking awake, unfortunately. I wish I could remember my dreams. I'd probably be a lot smarter.
Well, psychedelics are they can be a form of dream world, I think, too, because when you do psychedelics, it's breaking down, like when you're unconscious, you're breaking down, you're bypassing your conscious filters. And that's what happens with psychedelics often, is that your conscious filters, your normal filtering of the world goes away. And those parts of your brain actually shut down. And so the more unconscious or subconscious elements come to the fore. So there's a parallel there between the psychedelic world and the dream world, I think.
Absolutely. And that's in the historical dream literature I'm editing and re-releasing as well, is a lot of these comparisons to definitely psychedelics. Those are discussed somewhat, although in the 18th century, 19th century, they're more talking about experiences with opium, hashish, ether, and various experiences of dreams people have reported on anesthetics during surgery, or coming in and out of those experiences. And there's been a lot of different theories of like, what are dreams? What is our brain doing while we're asleep? And it very much starts with that disconnect of new present external stimuli. And a lot of times psychedelics do have that same thing. We have a disconnect from this hyper focus on our current thoughts, our current experience, our concentration and attention get scattered. And that's why a lot of people take them for creative purposes. Exactly. It can be very inspirational.
Right. Yeah. Normally our conscious mind filters the world so that it's more understandable, and it becomes very familiar. Where you take those filters off and you slip back into the subconscious, unconscious realm, and you've got a whole new world, right, where things can get very weird. Yeah, definitely. And a lot of people seek that out as because they crave novelty and it's exciting. It's a positive experience. A lot of people are scared of it because maybe what's in their subconscious is scary, things they aren't confronting or dealing with, or they fear a loss of a sense of control where they don't know. I mean, that's one reason I quit smoking weed 20 some odd years ago, just because it gave me that anxiety. Like it made me feel stupid and like people were judging me and thinking bad thoughts about me. And I'm like, I just don't need that, so it was no longer fun for me. So you're not enjoying it. You're not getting any benefit out of it. Don't
push yourself to do something for social reasons, you know.
But that is an integral part of your unconscious, right?
It is.
It is something that's already there. Like drugs don't put anything in your mind or anything in your psyche that isn't already there. They're just amplifying what's there.
Absolutely. And I do have a lot of anxiety issues as part of, you know, and part of my sense of my ego, my sense of pride is thinking well, expressing myself clearly to the best of my ability, and, you know, not embarrassing myself by saying stupid, thoughtless, unkind, wrong things. And so, yeah, when I get into that state of mind where my brain slows down, I could just stare blankly at a wall and not interact with people, but I couldn't string two words together in a coherent sentence. So, and that gave me that fear. Yeah, no, it's definitely, that's what people a lot of times talk about, say marijuana causing anxiety or paranoia. They call it marijuana paranoia. For me, yes, because of underlying anxiety conditions. Not for everybody, and that's, you know, it's I know other people, it just makes them laugh like crazy, and they love being goofy, and it's just nothing but a happy, fun time for them. And God love them. I have no objection. I'm glad.
Yeah, it's like alcohol is very much like that. It amplifies what's there, and some people are, you know, they're happy and well adjusted, and when they get drunk, they get jolly and happy and friendly, and other people get, you know, violent and nasty.
Oh yeah,
that's their underlying psychology, which is being amplified. It's coming through without the filters.
Exactly.
I guess we do that in dreams too, because the filters come off, and then we see what's really there. But
that's what I was going to say.
I question that though with dreams. I'm not convinced that dreams are terribly significant. I think they can be, certainly. I don't think mine are. I've been looking at my dreams for, you know, decades, and I really don't see any significant, and things that happen, novel things that happen in my dreams, I can always trace to a TV show that I just watched, or a comment that somebody made at a party yesterday, or an event, or a picture that I saw. These just everyday events and everyday inputs are reflected in the dreams.
Yeah.
So I don't see, you know, for me, I've never really seen a lot of significance, especially not in my dreams, because they're so repetitive and predictable and boring. So it's
definitely
hard for me to imagine that
yeah,
there's some deep, you know, psychological message that my subconscious is trying to tell me. I've had much more powerful messages with psychedelics, you know, like on LSD or psilocybin. That really, you know, brings stuff out and magnifies what's there. But the dreams to me seem to be like a popcorn machine of various various events and various influences throughout the days or previous, you know, few days that just pop up just because they're just being swirled around like in a washing machine.
Absolutely. No, that is a very common experience as well. There's a lot in our dreams that are just the events of the previous day. It's like you're still awake and you're in the evening time and you're sitting down to relax, and you kind of reflect a little bit on what you did during the day, and unbidden, without directing your focus to a specific time of day, little discrete instances that happen come back to you and they float through your head. Maybe you wanted to take a second look at it. Maybe you wanted to enjoy the memory of a positive experience, or you look at a negative experience and say, man, I wish I'd said something different. What could I do next time? And that same waking reflective process very, very often is exactly what's happening in dreams. So there's also a distinction too of this my kind of common everyday reflecting, and then there's some more profound experiences where something is very intense and meaningful, and that's because you were wrestling with an idea that is more intense and meaningful to your waking mind. And not everyone has those experiences, or if they do, they can be rare. It's not like every single dream every night is trying to give you a message that's going to change your life. It's not possible any more than you can have a life-changing experience every day while you're awake. Most of it's mundane. So, but in your circumstances, your conclusion or your assessment of your own experiences is absolutely right. Because of the repetitive nature, they've become less interesting, and they don't seem to have something of specific value to you in some way that's like it's a message trying to break through from the subconscious. It does feel like that. What we gotten as far as to say that you'd found the mechanic and let him know that it's oil problems, so the functioning of the engine, and the idea of the maybe the steering control being something wrong with it. And then you took a walk. Do you remember where you went to or the purpose for that walk?
When I left, no, actually. I mean, I was gone, and then I'm coming back. So I don't remember where I went.
Or
often that's the case when I lose my car. Like I'll park the car and put it in a space that I've parked in, 100 times before, and then I'll go, but not specifically anywhere. And then there'll be a period of time pass, and then I'll come back. So it just seems to set up the car theft.
It does seem
so. To be a setup for the loss of the car.
Yeah, and this happens again.
And sometimes I'm even with people, and they'll go, "Oh wow, where's your car? We parked it there." And I'll go, "Oh yeah, it's been stolen. It's always stolen." that's always happens, and it's no big deal because it'll happen this time. It'll happen again. It's happened hundreds of times before, and it's no big deal, and I don't react to it.
Yeah,
but I'll explain it to somebody sometimes.
So that was your experience coming back this time. You remember leaving, something happens, you're gone for a time, and then suddenly scene change, you're coming back and you see the empty spot where the car should be.
Yeah.
And what do you experience when you see it again? This was one of those, of course it's gone.
I say, oh yeah, it's gone. Of course it's gone. And the guy's there, and I say, yeah, what happened to the car? He said, I don't know. It must have got stolen. I said, yeah, it always gets stolen. No problem. It's okay. It's just always happens. And yeah, it's not a big deal. And then the dream kind of ends, or it goes into something else.
So that appears to be one complete, discrete, compact idea of a particular kind of experience. And that very often happens in dreams. People say, I don't know what I was dreaming about before. I know I was dreaming, but then this scene started, and I remember this scene, and it ends at a particular point in my memory of it. And then I obviously went on to dream about other things or not, but can't remember.
Sometimes in the morning, I'll remember like 3 separate dreams that I had the night before.
That's just amazing to me. I can't remember one.
3 very specific dreams, and I'll remember them all in sequence.
That is very cool to have that kind of memory recall. I get more snippets. I get images that are, as I find myself floating in and out of, say, rolling over in bed. I have a memory I rolled over in bed, and I know I was dreaming right before that, but then I just don't carry anything. Like I'd have to get up immediately in the middle of the night and start writing down. I just want to go back to sleep. It's not that important to me to try and capture a few images on paper.
I can also go back to a dream. So if I'm, falling asleep, what I do is I just relax, and then I, do my thinking. And then when that's over, I just deep breathe, and I remember the dream from the night before, and I go back into that.
Wow.
So I remember where I was, because I've been back to these same places. There's one on a fishing dock, and there's a bar on the fishing dock, and in the bar I usually meet Bill Murray.
Because why not? Because Bill Murray's awesome.
And he's a fisherman with a fisherman's hat on and stuff. So I know this place so well that I'll think about the dock, and then I'll put myself on the dock, and I'll walk down the dock and walk into the bar, and there's Bill Murray, and then I'm into the dream. And then I'll go on from there. So I'll often do that, use a dream that's so familiar that I can just put myself back there.
That is very cool. You're not the first person who's told me that too, that they have that. And it seems to be a feature of people with lucid dreaming awareness, whatever that means, that there's some link between the ability to be aware of yourself in dreams and the ability to return to a dream on a subsequent occasion, or even the same night, roll over, be aware of rolling over, and go back into the same dream when you go to sleep. That's amazing.
So I'll get up and take a pee, and I'll wake up, get out of bed, but I'll hold the dream in my mind, and I'll go to the bathroom, I'll come back, lay down, and go straight back into it.
That is amazing. Not the first time I've heard that, but I still don't understand that phenomenon. There's a lot of this that I'm getting. Like, I'm probably gonna have to talk to another 200-300 people before I start seeing patterns. I need a lot of data, but at least I'm starting to pay attention to some of these little. Okay, so it seems lucid dreaming and going back into the same dream after waking up, definitely related. That's a pattern I'm seeing. What does it mean? I'm not sure yet. Right. But for this specific one, like I always like to ask folks too, was there anything going on, stress or struggle or anticipations or current projects that happened at the time of the dream, the day before, the day after, the day of?
Like I say, some of these dreams have been going on for decades, so they're not really tied to any specific temporal event.
It doesn't seem
to
like
be
it.
Anyway.
I mean, the obvious answer would be, oh, my car broke down, so I had a car broke down dream. That is a little obvious. But,
yeah.
But we're looking at, what I'm trying to put together is why the theme of this dream expressed itself in this way related to what was going on. You know, why this format of this formula that often appears in different ways. It didn't put you in Paris. It put you in this industrial park. And that's, so what am I trying to say? We all have our daily routines, and that involves our work often, or social relationships. So was there anything going on in terms of, like, you were planning on attending a book release promotional event, or you had other social obligations, or you were working on a new piece of music? Anything that kind of overlaps that time in terms of what you were doing during your waking hours?
I don't think so. Like I say, it's
nothing.
just the same dream I always have. So it doesn't seem to be tied to an event in the real world, unless it was triggered by an event in the real world, 30 years ago when I first had the dream.
I suppose
Since
so.
then, it's just been on endless repeat.
It definitely seems tied to long-term conceptualizations of specific ideas. So fair enough to say, I'm not actually asking you to draw a direct connection to a specific event. Just kind of describe anything you were doing during that time period in terms of projects or anticipated obligations. I don't know if anything comes to mind.
You mean the first time the dream happened, or
no, just last week when you had this one? What was kind of going around that time?
Normal routine. I write during the day, and have a basement reno that I'm supervising, and stuff like that. Just normal stuff. Nothing really significant or unusual.
Nothing that stands out as profound in that, or directly connected. So
certainly not directly connected. I mean, I haven't had this car for 15 years.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, no. So I mean, that seems. If I were to describe my day, this lamp keeps turning off. That's pretty similar. I mean, I wake up in the morning, I get my coffee, I do social media stuff, I work on my videos, I do interviews, I edit books. It is pretty consistent. And I'm working on my kitchen as well. So, I mean, I've got a little renovation project going on. So it all seems very similar. So why didn't I have this type of dream with a lot of similar stuff going on? Well, a great way to do it might be to go a little bit backwards. So I start putting together symbolic representations that seem to make sense. And it's always got to make sense to you, not to anybody else, and certainly not just to me. I'm not telling you what it means because I can't. But the first note I made was the idea of this familiar industrial landscape being, and you described this very desolate, barren, broken down, dusty, middle of nowhere. It feels like it's everything that represents a place where there's no vibrancy and life. There's no reason to go there, to experience anything. The experience of going there isn't worthwhile or inspiring. It's decayed. It's not, it's everything that it's everywhere that's nowhere you even want to be. Why even go there? So I don't know if when I start describing those things, does that speak to a perspective on your life? I mean, dead places, you just kind of avoid them because there's nothing there for you.
I think it's what I associate, like there's places that I think I've seen like that, where just rows of garages and strip malls and, desolate, sort of uninteresting to me, that sort of American culture of the strip mall and the endless strip of, of places of business or whatever. In this case, it's, I think I've seen places, but actually there's a place in Victoria which is a strip of car places in a long strip. So I think that's where that's from. It's an environment that I've seen before. It's just more kind of broken down and desolate. There's nobody there too. It's deserted as well. The only people I see there are either people in the supermarket or this guy in the garage. Everything else is just dead.
Gotcha. Yeah. So what I'm trying to do is draw that to, and based on very little. I was actually speaking once to another an actual licensed clinical therapist that does dream work, and he was asking me about my process. He's like, well, how do you do like patient history to know you're on to the right track? I'm like, well, I do that all during the experience of talking to someone. So some people get a very detailed, long, in-depth clinical history of everything people have been through and all the, turning points in their life and all this kind of stuff. I'm like, I'll get there if I got time, if it's relevant, if it comes up in conversation. So all that, long story short, to say what I have tried to do while talking to is get a sense of who you are,
right,
superficially. And you seem to be someone who would lean away from those kind of desolate, deserted, dusty, dead places. You're more seeking the vibrancy and the new and the novelty and the experience and the socialization. So there's something about being forced to come to this place to get a need met, to get something repaired that seems significant to me. I don't know if that speaks to you in any way.
I don't know. I think it's just an excuse to get my car stolen again, I think.
It may be. I mean, that's a very direct thing. It's like, oh, let's put so if we focused on that as like the key element, I mean, we're kind of getting there too, is why this car always being stolen? Why the car stolen all the time, over and over and over? There's something in there as well.
Well, like I say, I valued this car more than any other car I've had.
Yeah.
It was my favorite car. It was a lot of fun and had many good memories with it. So I guess that's makes it a bigger loss. But because it's been stolen so many times now, that it's not a loss anymore. That element is gone. When it first started happening, I felt the loss. It's like, oh shit, my great car's been stolen.
Yeah.
And I felt, an emotional loss. But not anymore. It's just, I just laugh about it now and I go, yeah, it's always stolen. Same thing happens with my guitar. I've done a lot of traveling and I always traveled with a guitar. That's another one I've had hundreds of times. I put the guitar down at a train station. I look around and I go, yeah, of course it's gone. It's always gone. It's always stolen. and then I just get on the train and carry on without it. It doesn't even matter anymore. It's happened so many times.
Well, and the idea
that the weird thing is the repetition is just endless. It's annoying.
For sure. And the idea that these are not inconsequential objects. They're objects of tremendous value, inherent value in general, a vehicle, a musical instrument, but also tremendous value to you. And the idea that they would be desirable to a thief. They would be something someone would want to take. So there's something in there that says something important, I think. And I was getting around to the idea of that car, and that this particular vehicle represents a time in your life when there was maybe, I mean, if you look back on it, would it be safe to describe it as some kind of a high watermark in terms of the thrill of living? Does that make sense?
Yes and no. I've had a lot of high points. And
fair enough.
Anybody that reads my book, Confessions of an Ethical Drug Dealer by Jimmy Fritz, available at fine bookstores everywhere.
We will plug that again at the end, link in the description below.
We'll actually realize that I've had many, many, many peak experiences. So that was certainly one of them. Yeah, it was a peak experience.
Very cool.
But one of many,
So you've basically driven your concept of peak experience at a certain young age, a certain iconic experience of that time in your life to you had to take it to this desolate, deserted, undesirable place because there's some resource there that you needed to fix it, to keep that vehicle or what it represents functioning. But you had trouble finding the right tool for the job, so to speak. Yet you couldn't find an open shop, or you found shops where the people were missing, the executor of the ability was absent. So there's a sorting process of looking for the right tool for the job, so to speak. And then you finally find one. It's the last chance. It's the last shop on the row, so to speak. And you give it a shot. The guy says he can fix it. And then again, you have this disappointing experience of not only is it not fixed, it's gone. Whatever you were, something about returning to this place to effect this repair, to to the vehicle and having it repeatedly disappear. There's something in that story arc that maybe repeats throughout your life, or looking back on the past.
I can't get anything out of it at all. And to me, they're so similar.
Yeah.
And it's not just this one place. Happens in many places. The car just gets stolen every time I park it, basically. And,
yeah. I don't know if this is speaking to your creative process. Something about like seeking there's something thrilling about chasing the new, because we all live for emotion and experience, but there's also something very necessary about the practical, almost dead, boring, but necessary act of just being something as simple as a mechanic. Not that mechanics are, but it isn't being a rock musician. It isn't climbing the Himalayas. It's getting people's cars working so they can drive to work. It's very, very simple, honorable, necessary work that just isn't it isn't glamorous.
No,
that's kind of where I'm going with this idea. It's like, it seems like there's a strong draw in your personality towards away from this place of necessity that has the mechanical necessary elements for keeping things functional.
Mundane reality. No, I do have an aversion to mundane, boring, kind of straight people and jobs. And I mean, I've never had a regular job. I've always had an alternative lifestyle. So yeah, that's true that I have an aversion to the mundane, basically.
Fair enough.
And I'm always seeking out, peak experiences and social experiences and unique experiences. So that's true. But I know that of myself anyway. I mean, so I couldn't get any useful information. If that was the information, that's not useful information to me, because I already knew that.
You do know it, yeah.
It's completely obvious to me anyways. So it's not something that I could learn from a dream.
Not going to be a profound revelation to hear me say that in that way.
No, it's just, it's obvious to me, because I know, I have a pretty good sense of who I am. And so, yeah, there's nothing new in that type of dream for me. There's no new
Maybe
insight.
So. And it could be as simple as, so like I was saying, there's various different types of these dreams. There's dreams of, let me reflect on the day. And you have what people said and what you did, and you dream about it. Fair enough. And it's not profound. There's other types of dreams that are more profound. That it's like, I had a life-changing experience and I'm still trying to process it. Those can be repetitive or recurrent dreams too. There's also other dreams where it's hopes and fears come in there as well. And I may be getting, based on what you just said, the aversion to the mundane, and there may be a chronic recurrent fear that expresses itself that the vehicle that takes you to new experiences will suddenly be gone. You will lose the ability to transport yourself to where you really want to be. You'll have your car stolen in a place you don't want to stay, and that
right.
There'll be a difficulty in acquiring new peak experiences and seeing new novel things. And it may be as simple as you just can't stop wondering, is this as good as it gets? Is this as far as I can go, or can I find something new?
That's a fair point. That I do have, that may be a fear of losing novelty, losing that sort of, peak experience and those, peak times. But I don't think I do fear that.
Fair enough.
Because I do have less peak experiences these days and slightly more mundane life, and I'm fine with that.
That's good. It may also be an expression of that acceptance of, because there was a change that's been happening over the years. At the beginning, it was a panic moment. The car's gone. Oh my God. Strong emotional response. Now lately you're like, of course the car's gone. Car's always gone. It's hard to look for the next mountain to climb. And there's probably an acceptance that we all need to have as we get older, is that you kind of seen a lot and done a lot, and finding things you haven't seen or done is going to be few and far between.
The underlying message there to take away is that I'm over the hill.
Or
the best times have gone, and now it's just a deterioration to the grave.
It may be a
desolate parking lot is all I've got to look forward to.
You might be worried that that's true. That oh God, wouldn't that be horrible horrible if it was. That might be the sum total of this recurrent experience of the dreams. I don't know. I'm not an expert. I'm just a guy who thinks he's a wizard. But these are the intuitive things I get, where it's like, if it makes sense to you, we've got a reasonable kind of explanation for why maybe the experience would reoccur. The great test will be, having kind of had this experience with me today and thought about it and heard it reflected back to you in that way, will the nature of some of these dreams change in the future? If your dreams change in some way after speaking with me, we hit something. It may not be the thing, but it was something close to the mark. At least we're throwing the hand grenade in the right direction, so to speak.
No, I think I do have a slightly. This is the most in-depth conversation I've had about my dreams, and it has. Yeah, there are some parallels I can draw there. Fear of. The other thing is that, like, consciously, I don't fear death, and I don't fear, deterioration. I'm 67 now. I've probably got another 10 good years and a couple more shitty years, and so I'm fine with that. I don't think I have any problem with that at all. So if that's the insight, again, I've already got it. I've already learned that lesson. I've already come to terms with my own death and my own mortality and my own deterioration. Like, I can't do the things I used to do. I can't, climb mountains and go hang gliding, and not that I ever did, but
yeah,
you know what I mean?
Either.
There's things that I used to do that I can't do now, and I'm aware of my deterioration to the grave. My mortality is becoming ever more present. So it might be just a reflection of that.
Could be, yeah. And there's a couple of different ways that we experience that as well, and one is acceptance, and you got to have that because it's happening, and fighting it is just a recipe to be miserable. But the other side of the coin is a very appropriate grief at the loss of these things. It's like, when I've played a game to its end, a video game, the game's over. There's no more game to experience. I accept that I reached the conclusion, and that's fine. And I don't regret the experience, but I can never have it again. I can never play that game for the first time ever again. So there's a sense of celebration. I've reached the conclusion. There's a sense of acceptance. Oh, it's over. And a sense of sadness. What are you going to do? It's like I accept the fact that the party's going to be over. But there's a kind of a sad regret that the party will continue without me. Yeah, I used to call it post-vacation depression when you're driving home from that absolutely banging weekend where you just had so much fun, and it's Sunday afternoon and you got to go back to work on Monday, and it's not Friday. You're not hitting the party for the first time anymore. Right. My dog's outside saying hello to the neighbors. Well, yeah, if you feel like we've at least explored the subject in an interesting way and gotten some useful reflection. That's pretty much all I do. Sometimes I get a little more specific. Sometimes people have epiphanies. Right. I just like talking about it. I'll talk to anybody about anything. My last episode completely failed. Couldn't tell that guy why he had a dream brother for 40, 50 years of his life in recurring dreams. Right. We couldn't answer it. It's beyond my ability at this time, but
maybe something just gets stuck. Sometimes I feel like these ideas are just stuck in a rut, and I just go to the familiar ruts in my dreams, and they just repeat and repeat endlessly. But it's it's kind of annoying sometimes. Yeah. Sometimes I wish I could just have deep dreamless sleep.
Yeah. And hopefully I would love to hear back from you if it does occur, but in the next week or month or whatever, you're like, my dreams changed a little bit. That car's not stolen anymore. What is going on here? That might happen. I can't promise it, but something.
Give me a call in 6 months, and I'll give you an update.
Right?
If anything changed.
Exactly.
It'd be interesting to see if something changes in that dream.
It would be. I always want to hear from it. I did talk to one guy who was a combat veteran, and he had this experience of moving through a house using his military skills, but also seeking something. And he would get into this area of the backyard where there was an alleyway, and he was not allowed to go into that alleyway. These shadow creatures would show up and box him and keep him from progressing. After we talked, he got back to me later and he said, I've become friends with the shadow creatures. Now they're interacting with me. They still won't let me into the alleyway, but they're not attacking me anymore. There's something changed in this recurring dream experience. I was getting a little misty. I'm like, oh, I helped someone kind of see something. Who wants to get beat up every night in their dreams? It's awful.
Right.
So, all right, we'll wrap it up. We'll do the housekeeping stuff. So, links in the description below. This has been our friend Jimmy Fritz. I'm not going to read the whole thing again because I don't have that breath in me anymore. But
Confessions of an Ethical Drug Dealer.
That's what I'm talking about. And you can find him at jimmyfritz.ca, JIMIFRITZ.ca, Jimmy Fritz. It's been a lot of fun talking to you.
Yeah, that was interesting. Yeah, thanks a lot.
I really appreciate your time. And I'm going to say to all my folks out there, hey, like, share, subscribe, tell your friends. Thanks for listening. Buy a book, and we'll see you next time.
Okay, cheers, Benjamin. Take care.
Take care. Bye-bye.
All the best.